I'm alone now. Where did I even leave off? I don't even remember. So the day Meet the Grams came out, and I was on YouTube because I stay on YouTube, usually to follow the things I'm interested in. But when I heard it, it was compelling. And I went to Facebook after the very first listen, and I shared the YouTube video of Meet the Grams. And I don't post a ton on Facebook, but I just put, like, this is the best song I've ever heard. I could write a PhD dissertation on this song. The angles, the cultural reference, the style, the setup, the structure of the letters, the dear baby girl, whether that daughter existed or not, I knew immediately, like, this is going to resonate with so many women who were that girl, who identify with that girl, saw themselves in that girl. And even though I knew it was a diss track, and I was on YouTube, and clearly people, and you know, we know how social media is now. I understand that the internet sleuths are serious, right? Even if the interpretation of information is not always the most logical or, you know, accurate. And I knew, like, there's a chance he does, because, you know, mama's baby, daddy's baby, it's kids everywhere. The niggas don't know. I mean, yeah, that men don't always realize they have. And also, I'm from a time where beef wasn't like a factual thing that you could immediately verify. When Tupac said he slept with Biggie's woman, I don't remember nobody caring if they could, you know, nobody was watching the news waiting to see if somebody was going to put a mic in Faith Evans' face and be like, did you sleep with Tupac? We didn't care. So, you know, I didn't care. People didn't care. How could they? So I didn't hear it from a point of, and this, I hadn't heard Meet the Family Matters yet. I hadn't heard Push-Ups, Tailor Made, 616 in LA, or Euphoria at this point. The first thing I heard was Meet the Grams. I'm like, it's the best song I ever heard. I could write a dissertation on this. In my brain, I could see several angles. And it reminded me that I heard that there was a course where they studied his, Kendrick's, one of those albums or something at an Ivy League school. And I can't remember the school, but I remember it was an article. It wasn't just some random thing on the internet. It was an actual article. I read articles. Not that they are just 100% fact, but you're not going to lie about a course at a university. So I'm like, this is why. This is why right here. This is why. It just took me back to the classroom. It took me back to my senior seminar that I wrote about Detroit poetry and sports. And you might not think there's a connection between Detroit poetry and Detroit sports, but there was one. And I'm like, this is the best song I've ever heard, because not only do I understand the story, it runs deep, and I want to understand more. I want to analyze it. I want to pick this apart. I want to apply this in ways that people can, you know, dissect it in ways that people could apply to their life. Like, it was rich off the first listen. I'm like, okay, now I just got to go back and see what's going on with this beef. I hadn't felt that excited. And there's a lot going on in my life in general. So for this to get my attention, I ended up being almost chained to YouTube for basically almost every day since Meet the Grams dropped. So I was on YouTube when Not Like Us dropped. By then, I had listened to Euphoria and 616 in LA, but only enough to get a initial preliminary idea of the entendres, the layers, the depths. A lot of it was hidden just culturally. There's some things that you just, like, when you grow, Compton and Detroit are different, but a lot of it is the same. And you hear that sameness. When you grow up in these neighborhoods that have these experiences, violence, gangs, drugs. It was mostly drugs and violence. Gang life was different in Detroit back then. It wasn't as pervasive or as clear cut. And Detroit's been black as long as I've been. It's just the blackity black. So it ain't like no. Well, I won't say that. We do have Mexican Town, and we had a large Chaldean community growing up, and you know, they moved out towards the end of the 90s. By the early 2000s, that population had died down. But either way, similarities. The similarities are there enough to where culturally hip-hop, even in its most vulgar or grandiose form, has a familiarity to it for people who grew up in that culture. So I understood that angle from Kendrick. And I mean, and nobody, I know a lot of people didn't think about these things, but anybody who sees things the way I see it has seen it from the beginning about Drake. So it wasn't like a huge shock, like, oh, a culture vulture. I mean, like, come on, he was from Canada. We knew, like, this boy, he was getting his clout around. But I will say, I can't say when I was listening to him in college that I was aware of how he was moving for real in the industry, and how much he may or may not have contributed to the creativity of his own albums. Because we know there are singers who sing, and they'll sing whatever's put in front of them. And we know singers have teams, and we know some singers like to write and some don't. Some like to collab, especially rappers, with different producers, and they like to keep a sound, and some want to experiment. But it didn't occur to me how, it's a term for this, a specific term. It's not groomed, but fabricated. How fabricated his artistic expressions or creative works were, right? So with the back-to-back and the ghostwriters, there was already a general understanding that in mainstream hip-hop, there was a level of ghostwriting that you couldn't say how much of it was happening, but it was something that it was almost like you had to accept was a possibility just off of the amount of music people were putting out, especially when you compare it to singing and R&B. We accept the fact that most R&B singers don't write all their own songs. We accept that. But the ghostwriter element was tricky because rap is based so much on writing your material, you see. And see, that was the trick. Drake sang and rapped. If he's singing, who cares if he wrote it? If he's rapping, we think that to some degree you wrote this. You see what I'm saying? And if you're doing both, you really blur the line. And what happened was, it didn't really come into question. So when the ghostwriting thing came out, of course, that was something they began to associate with him after that. But I don't remember it being a slam dunk destruction of his career. It wasn't. He continued to succeed, mostly because whether it was ghostwriting or not, we, for the most part, accepted the music. It was danceable, all those things. Like I said, didn't seek out much Drake at that point. None after college. But I do want to add, I did hear, just hold on, we're coming home. I remember hearing that in some cars, like walking a lot in Chicago, taking public transit. I do remember hearing that a lot. And it was catchy. You know, I remember seeing the video in my news feed occasionally on social media or YouTube. Stuff like that. But I didn't throw it on a playlist, but I got it. I understood why he was continuing to succeed. It was infectious, right? So all that to say, to get back to the point, when I heard Kendrick Lamar's tracks, the diss element did not grab me so much as the creative elements. That man, and I knew he wrote that stuff. Like, I knew it, because like writers, rappers, artists, thinkers, especially when you come up in something and you find a way to put words to it and you practice that and you do it's profound. And a lot of African Americans in that culture are able to do this in ways that we don't even always give ourselves credit for. And this is running so long, so I'm going to do 2 separates. This will be part 2. I'm going to do 2 separate videos. But listen, and I'm doing one takes. I'm not editing. I'm not doing none of that stuff. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I just want to get this out there. But, Marcellus Wiley. I'm following the music. I'm following the so-called beef. I'm following the content. I'm in the comment sections, baby. I be in the comments. That's one thing. I've been on Facebook since 2006, okay? I've been on the internet since the 90s in them AOL chat rooms. So every form of clickety-clack on the board to engage the people online, Twitter, all that, I'm there. And I've gotten to the point where I know how to enjoy those conversations without getting too argumentative and wasting my time or getting too emotional. But that's like over 20 years of internet communication exchange that a lot of people don't have. Like coming up in the 90s with AOL, being in a chat room with a bunch of teenagers from across the country. That's wild when you look back on it. Someone was all in the city, like, oh, you go to that school? I know who go to that school. That's crazy. But all that to say, I'm engaging in it, but still for me, what was keeping me in it was the creativity. And I knew Drake lost. And I knew it was going to be some PR stunt wrap up after They Not Like Us and how good it was and how suspicious Drake looked before Kendrick even put these disses out there. And I didn't even care about the J. Cole element. I'm like, I get it. So then when Hard Part 6 came out and I listened to it, that changed everything. I listened to that song and I realized, and by then I had already saw Marcellus Wiley talk about Drake coming on and dissing Kendrick. That wasn't surprising to me. You know, like, you jealous. I mean, not jealous, but that makes sense to me. And then the pull of, okay, I'm hosting the ESPYs. If y'all don't pull that story, I'm not going to host the ESPYs. That made sense to me. That seemed like a type of thing a Drake will do. And when I say a Drake, people from the culture know what I mean. That one bougie, and it ain't even about colorism, that one bougie cousin from the suburbs or that grew up with money, when you come to the cookout or when they spend the night or there's a family event, they're different. They handle conflict different. They do different things to get what they want. They cry different. They complain different. You know, like a Karen almost. Everybody got a Karen cousin if you got somebody who came up just a little bit more affluent or privileged, right? So a Drake, like, that sounded like a Drake thing to do. Say, oh no, pull that. Like, you talk too much, realize it was going to hurt you. Team was like, you shouldn't have did that. We're not really ready for that. We don't want that beef, for real. Pulled it. Okay. I saw that. And I said, well, that's a Drake thing. That don't surprise me too much. But when I heard the Heart Part 6, I was not expecting that level of I don't want to get into psychological terms because I'm not a mental health expert. But I don't know what other terms to use. So in a broad sense, not to be an expert, I was not expecting that level of narcissism, tone deafness, blatant disrespect, like to his own mother. My mama came over. I'm like, mother, I. Oh, wait. And before he even said anything like, that's that track, in my head, I'm like, the fuck, this nigga, you done cut your mama off in a beef about a beef. What are you talking about? Like, what are we even talking about at this point? And when he said, oh, that's the son where he was molested. And in my head, I'm like, what is he talking about, y'all? And so I'm like, this ain't what I thought it was. And so now everything I already knew about Drake is starting to look different. Okay, that Karen move at ESPN, that's... If this is... And we know celebrities be grooming teenagers. It's not a new thing. Whether they sleeping with them at that age or not, it's still wrong. But we know this. We know it. And some people turn a blind eye, but we've known it. We know it. But then it made me question, okay, the ghostwriting is a little bit more than just a little bit of support with the workload. And also, the people around you don't like you. They're there to make money. Like, this is what I'm seeing. This is what this is what is coming to me that I didn't fully consider before. Somebody let you put this on the internet. And then he used Aretha Franklin, the sample, right? And I'm from Detroit, and Aretha died, and it's a big deal. And her estate, and I don't know who has the rights to that song. But I'm like, I'm from Detroit. Toronto is a few hours north of us. You know, you go south on that Ambassador Bridge, get to Windsor, Ontario, and it's like the same distance it would take to get to Chicago. We shoot back and forth to Chicago. How many times do you think Drake shot back and forth to Detroit? In his youth, in his life. He could have been inspired by Eminem. Oh, he made 8 Mile Road. He could have made an Ambassador Bridge movie. Before they required an enhanced ID or passport, we was always people in Detroit shot back and forth to Canada like it was nothing. I went to Toronto my freshman year. That was our trip. I went to a school in Detroit. Our freshman honors trip was to Toronto. And we went like on some train. We crossed the bridge, did some stuff, and went on the train. Like, it was nothing to get there, right? And that made me think, if he's just been in Tibet this whole time. Now, we knew he was never really about that street life. But he would never really stomp around in our city. Never did, never would. I mean, come do some shows and some appearances, but... and it just didn't sit with me. But as the song went on, it just got worse and worse. And y'all already know why. So... I'm too famous to do those things you suggested. Oh my God. Are you that naive, stupid, full of yourself? And for me, the ESPN incident specifically, for some reason, that for me, it's what anchored my whole restructuring of the story that I understood. Well, now we don't know celebrities. I don't pretend to think at any point that I knew Drake or what he was capable of. But I think to an extent, I accepted a level of fakeness from him, and it felt like it was inconsequential. But when I saw Marcellus Wiley's first, let me just finish with Heart Part 6. Either way, after Heart Part 6, I knew it was over. I knew the beef was over. Knew some weird stuff was up, too. Like, this is weird. Weird. Now, okay, I gotta end this. I'm already at 18 minutes. Jesus, how do I say this? Like I said, my mom died May 7th, 2013. My dad's birthday is May 7th. He likes to go out on Cinco de Mayo. Due to some of the stuff I'm going through and got going on, I just wasn't able to go out with my family on Sunday, Cinco de Mayo. But I was still really deep into this YouTube story. But then I started to re-listen to Kendrick's tracks and then listen to Drake's tracks. And the more I listened to it, and the more I understood about it, and the more I understood the references based on like the other reactors breaking them down, because I don't follow it. I don't know all these people. I don't know all these references, these entendres, the tracks that refer to different things. I know Kendrick was going deep with it. I know we could probably be analyzing just a few songs for decades, to be honest, because what? And I realized this ain't even about rap. This ain't about hip-hop. This ain't even about a beef. This is something spiritual. This is something philosophical. Kendrick's angle was to destroy everything Drake stood for, like he knew something that we did not know. And then Marcellus Wiley, baby, y'all gotta go see his story. He gave the details on his own YouTube page and gave the specifics that he didn't share in those previous interviews and videos. When the interview was pulled, Marcellus Wiley is from Compton. What a coincidence, right? Knew Top Dog, knew the people. Called and said, this boy Drake just came on our show and straight went in on Kendrick, like on some messy, some stuff. And the reason that Marcellus Wiley didn't give us the specifics before is because 10 years ago, Top Dog was like, good info. I needed to be verified in some way, which was tricky because it was pulled, and ESPN has the tapes, and they need to release them tapes. And so he sort of just swore to secrecy. I'm not going to tell nobody who and what. I'm going to let y'all do what y'all do. That means for 10 years, Kendrick knew how Drake really felt about him. Drake did not know that Marcellus Wiley knew Top Dog people. You never know who's around when you say stupid stuff. And like Marcellus Wiley said, it could have just been some stuff he said. We all say stuff we don't mean or in the moment, especially you're a celebrity, you got PR checking you. Things could be taken the wrong way. But he said he went there. Oh, he went there. And then the move he made about, oh, y'all can't air that or I'm not hosting the ESPYs. That's a power move. I'm going to get my way. I got to dog him to y'all on the set. It didn't air, so I don't got to handle the consequence, and I still get to host the ESPYs. That's not street stuff. That's rich people stuff. Like born rich stuff. That ain't gutter, that ain't hip hop, that ain't I was on these streets. That's not even storytelling stuff. That's fabricated. That's dishonest. For so many reasons. So the Marcellus Wiley thing was like, okay, this ain't about rap at all. Kendrick knew for 10 years how that man really felt. And so when he wrote in Cole, I genuinely believe that somebody communicated with Cole like, this ain't what you think it is. Not because Kendrick is about to unload, but because Drake don't care about you. And we know he don't care about this beef, really. He just care about looking good and trying to destroy somebody. And Drake the whole time did not know that Top Dog already knew what time Drake was on from 10 years ago. That's poetic justice. Pun intended. That's so poetic.